All right, Adam, we're at practice 12. I think it's about the halfway point now, and the Buffs are about 2.5 weeks away from a game.
What day of the week is it now?
I have no idea. It's Wednesday, Tuesday, something like that. But, the Buffs are obviously approaching. It's coming up quick, right? I feel like the first 12 practices have gone by fast, and Coach Jarrell talked to us today, and I mentioned again a great practice, and I mentioned that they're really kind of fine tuning a lot of things right now, and kind of working on some situational football. What was your takeaways from Coach Jarrell today?
Yeah, like you said, they had kind of transitioned to the situational football stuff. Defense had a really good day today. Even had some of the defensive assistants. Rod Chance was pretty fired up walking through the hallway. Jalen Stryker, one of the guys I talked to today, had a big interception. We'll talk a little bit more about him today. But I thought overall on Saturday, if you had to pick a side of the ball that maybe stood out a little bit more, you would say the offense. So, it's kind of that adage that it's good when there's a give and take with the team.
Yeah, and Coach Jarrell mentioned that there's kind of a goal every day to get 3 turnovers on the defense, and they got that today. So, defense won today, he said, and you do like to see that. You don't want to see one side win every single day. So let's talk about some of the interviews that we've done. You mentioned Jalen Stryker, and he's a guy that has been here for a while now, but he hasn't played. I mean, I don't think he's played a single snap yet in a CU uniform. What your takeaway from him? Coach Jarrell talked about him as well, but what's your thought on Jalen?
First off, credit to him, because I think a lot of guys in his situation not playing the last couple of years would have transferred, and there were a lot of guys that did that this past season. And everybody looks at the sheer number of guys that left this program, and certainly some of those guys hurt. Christian Gonzalez, Jarek Broussard, there's probably 6 guys you'd say that you'd like to have in this program. But most of that attrition was good attrition. And had Jalen Stryker left, maybe you would have said that, but instead – he really dedicated himself this offseason, and he said it was not getting on the field that he took a look in the mirror and said, this is no one else's fault but you. And I think a move to safety has helped as well, because there is a lot of young talent at cornerback in this program, and for him being able to carve out a niche at a position where they needed help has really worked out, not only for him but for this defense as well. He was at nickel back in the spring, but he's moved back to safety pretty much exclusively during camp. And Carl Durrell, I asked him about Jalen Stryker and said that he's a guy that's going to play for them. I would think probably a second team guy right now at safety, and I mentioned the pick that he had today. And so out of Tampa, Florida, went the JUCO route, Independence Community College, and now here. He waited his turn, and so those are the good stories on a football team when you can find them. Yeah. The guy that his patience is finally starting to pay off.
Yeah, and a guy that we saw him make some plays at that scrimmage we got to see the other day as well. So, we'll see what kind of role he has. Safety, obviously, one of those question mark positions, right? With we know Isaiah Lewis is there, but there's a lot of open spots there. So Jalen Stryker has that opportunity. Another guy that I talked to, Guy Thomas, also went the JUCO route, Nebraska, JUCO, and then CU. He's a guy we've seen a lot more of. Played really well the first 7 games of last year, and then got injured the foot, and is trying to get back up to speed at this point, and he feels good. He told me he's playing fast. Coach Jarrell, however, said he's got to stop thinking a little bit. I just want him to go and play, and just this defense, just go play, because when he does that, he's really good.
He's a bad man when he's playing fast, and so that's the key, is you got to get him playing that way. We talked about him earlier during camp. He's a guy that could just completely blow up this season if he stays healthy, and I guess it does sound like there's a mental component there as well, but one of the more physically impressive players on this team.
Yeah. I also talked to Jaylee Stacks, who we saw in the scrimmage the other day, had a nice touchdown run. We've been kind of waiting for him to have that role in this offense, and and he feels like this is probably the year that he maybe gets that, but he also said, hey, Alex Fontenot and Deion Smith, they're the lead guys, and when my number is called, I'll be ready. But I'm fine with them. They're the lead guys. I get that. But what do you see out of Jaylee Stacks this year?
Well, you picked Guy Thomas, maybe the most physical guy on defense, and Jaylee Stacks might be the most physical guy on offense. I thought in the spring, when we got a chance to see him, when the defense can corral him initially, he's kind of mitigated, but when he gets a head of steam going as a ball carrier, I mean, I don't want to be the guy trying to bring him down. We saw a circumstance on Saturday where he got in the open field and made a great play, and so that's kind of the key with him, is getting some space, and once he gets that big body rolling, look out.
Yeah. Who else did you talk to today?
I had a chance to talk to Quinn Perry, and it was interesting, the comments he made to me is he heard the criticism about his coverage skills and the lack of sideline to sideline speed, and so he went into this offseason and trimmed some weight so he could get a little bit quicker in that regard, and so he feels good in that sense, and he says he thinks he's number 2 on the defense in picks this preseason so far. So you remember Nate Landman, the reason he didn't get on the field more as a true freshman is because he was a liability in pass coverage. And so Quinn Perry had a rugby background. He didn't really focus in on football until the second year that he was at a JUCO. And so it took some time for him to develop, and we'll see. It's one of those, I think, when you hear Quinn Perry say that he's good in coverage now, it's a wait-and-see type thing. Yeah. But the fact that he is self-aware enough to know that that's the area that he needed to improve was important, and he's among the guys, I'm sure you've asked guys, who stepped up as a leader, and Quinn Perry's name keeps coming up. Even I asked Jordan Tyson, who's taken you under his wing, and a true freshman receiver, he mentioned Quinn Perry. So It's cool to see him really take ownership on this team.
Yeah, Tommy Brown's mentioned Quinn Perry to me as well. Jaylee Stacks today mentioned him as well. So Quinn Perry, definitely a leader on this team, and they need him to be a better player overall. One last thing is earlier this week we got a chance to talk to Clay Patterson, who I really like talking to that guy. I mean, he's been around so much football and the lower levels. He's done so many interesting things in his career. But what was your takeaway from talking with him the other day?
Well, both he and Mike Sanford, they've got the energy of a kid, which is great. That's what this program I felt needed, that infusion of enthusiasm. We see Mike Sanford racing guys up the ramp after practice when they're at the lower practice fields. Like you said, Clay Patterson, just a really good personality, a guy that you'd love to just sit down and talk with for an hour because he's got great stories and a great personality. And he's got an experience gap in his room, and in talking about that, and an Austin Smith who's got all these physical tools, but he's having to teach him how to line up as a tight end. So he's definitely earning his paycheck this year, but it does help that he mentioned it, that Brady Russell is basically like a co-coach in that room with him. So that helps quite a bit. But as he said, Brady Russell can't make every play in that tight ends group, and so there's a lot of talent there. Caleb Fourier's back, and he was a guy that we just kept waiting to emerge because we saw him a year and a half ago during spring ball, a couple open practices, that it was clear that he had quite a bit of ability. He just couldn't stay on the field last fall and then was out again this spring. So Eric Olson's got a bright future, and it sounds like Caleb Fourier is. The question is, how quickly does it come together for those guys?
Yeah, and to me that makes Clay one of the more important coaches on this team this year, is because you've got to have somebody other than Brady Russell, and I'm not sure there's another position that has the experience gap like tight end does, where you've got one senior and then 7 either true or redshirt freshmen. So I think Caleb Fourier has played 7 offensive snaps in his career, and he's the only other guy besides Brady Russell that's played a snap in college. So Clay Patterson's got his work cut out for him, but I think he's got a lot of talent there as well. So I think that'll do it for today, and Adam and I will be back later this week with another analysis video.